Okay, we are in Maimer Hay. Kol hishtadlus adam ba'olam hazeh, we learned that the main purpose, our main work in this world, hu lahagia l'shleimus hayira. It's all to come to Yira Shamayim. Let's take this very seriously. The main purpose, or the main hishtadlus in this world, is to come to Yira Shamayim. Not Abbas Hashem, not to be about Chesed, Yira Shamayim. Moshe Nemar, as the pasuk says, Ma Hashem shoyel im chokim liroisi. Nemar is Elikim Yirei. Zek kol ha'adam. Kol ha'adam. The whole purpose of Adam is Yira Shamayim. Sounds musadik, but it's not. In other words, it's teaching us the tachlis of the hishtadlus in this world is Yira Shamayim. This is an ikr. As Moshe Rabbeinu said. This is an ikr. Why is that the ikr? Zek kol esek olam hazeh. The hayoim la'asaysa, meaning not just Adam ba'olamai during our lifetime, but now we're expanding this to olam hazeh. The whole purpose of the world for these 6,000 years, from the time of Brias Adam until Yemais HaMashiach, expansion, is also Yira Shamayim. Hayoim la'asaysa ad Yemais HaMashiach, shamar b'shavas dehem yamim shein behem loischus. Once Mashiach comes, it's not about Yira Shamayim anymore. Yira Shamayim at that point is a given. It's not about Bechira. There is no more Bechira. So until then is the time of Yira Shamayim / Bechira. Choices that a person will make out of Yira Shamayim. As Rabbi David pointed out the other day, that we're not necessarily talking about Yiras HaOinesh, we're going to be talking about Yiras HaRoibimus. It's a high level of Yira, but Yira Shamayim. To Yishlam, once Mashiach comes, Yishlam Koyach HaBechira. Kishiagia L'tachlis HaShleimus Di Yira Shamayim. Why is there no more Bechira? Because we've come to Yira Shamayim. What's the point? To Machviluhu Yitzchak HaKadosh Baruch Hu Be'einayu, which is the Gemara I want to look at. The Machviluhu Yitzchak HaKadosh Baruch Hu Be'einayu Shehu Darga Di Yitzchak, which is the Bardrega of Yitzchak, Shehigia L'shleimus HaYira Ayidei Rias Hashem Yisbarach Noichach Einav. Yitzchak Avinu is, I just want to make an observation, is the quietest of all the Avos. There's like parshas about Avraham and parshas about Yaakov. Very little we know about Yitzchak. Dug a ditch, the brachas of Yaakov and Esav. In the Svarim HaKadosh of Yitzchak is the most vocal of them all. Because his silence was very, very loud. And most of the story that we know about Yitzchak is that he made a mistake. He wanted to give a bracha to Esav instead of giving a bracha to Yaakov. But the biggest ma'aseh that we know about, nobody even gets the Beiros and the Plishtim clearly. But what we know about Yitzchak Clark, Parsha told us, is made a mistake. Rivka was right, he was wrong. Yitzchak. But Yitzchak was the pillar of Yira Shamayim. And the most important thing to know about Yitzchak is that he was willing to be makir himself on the mizbe'ach of the Akedah. And it was at that point, we learned Rashi together, that he was 37, I believe the Cheshbon is. At that point, as we can imagine, if we can just think about it a little bit, at that point, once you're on the mizbe'ach, everything changes for you. You see your world in front of you, and Rashi puts it this way. He said that the Shemayim opened up to him. He says Yitzchak lying on the mizbeach. The Shemayim opened up to him. He saw Malachim, which I imagine means, according to the way we're learning at night in the Ramchal, means he saw the mechanism of how the world works. That's what Malachim means. It's Sinairos. So he saw behind the case, behind the world, how things work, what the deeper meaning of things are, what's really happening. That's what it means when the Shemayim opens up. It's really happening. And then this is it poetic or is it real? The Malachim were married to Mois. They cried, and the tears fell into the eyes of Yitzchak. Hence, Yitzchak went blind. And this was the blindness of Yitzchak, which only took place, it seems, 100 years later. He became blind. Only when he was a zaken, that he became blind. I was trying to be a misponen yesterday afternoon. Like, what is it? Like, what are we learning from this? That the Malachim cried and their tears went into the eyes of Yitzchak and went blind. I mean, what could it possibly mean? You start from the beginning. The Malachim cried, and their tears long tripped down all the way here, and they fell, of all places, they rained into the eyes of Yitzchak, and he went blind. Kasha Reisha, Kasha Seifa, Kasha B'tziyas. It's like the whole thing is shver, B'tchil Avad Seif. Is it a metaphor? What does it mean? So we spoke a little bit that we said is that once you're on the mizbe'ach, you become blind. That's a good thing. Sagi Nohar. It's a good thing to become blind. It means you don't see things the same way everybody else says. And somebody says, "What, are you blind? Don't you see?" Like, Baruch Hashem. So he was blind. Everybody saw Esav, but he saw Tzaddik. It would be a good zach if somebody would have everybody sees a Rasha and you see a Tzaddik. So it's a geder. I explained it's a geder of Rameir that was B'tayris Hasheretz. Everybody saw Hasheretz, revolting. And Rameir saw Hasheretz. Meir Eilei Chachavim Ba'alacha. Meir Eilei Chachavim Ba'alacha. You guys are not blind enough, he said to the Chazal. Let me illuminate your eyes. You should see the time of the Sheretz. Ein halacha k'vaisa. You don't eat shratzim, and you don't give a bracha teisav. Like ein halacha k'vaisa. But understand who Esav is, and understand what the Sheretz is, and understand who Acher is. Bruria was with him on this. Maybe she taught him this. These are the Talmidim of Rameir. Became the Talmidim of Rameir. Hani ber yoynei. The Shavu said Rameir. Rav Tzadok writes, and I'll show you the people that were fighting tooth and nail for the Beis Hamikdash at the time of the Korban LaSHem, Rav Tzadok writes, are called ber yonim. They were Kila Rishayim. They tried to kill Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. So he says, what is this that the most grubby young in Klal Yisrael were fighting for the Beis Hamikdash? Like there was something going on here which was, not so simply bad, and not so simply good. So there was this Indian of being Matayras Hasheretz. And this is the Indian that we learned, we've been learning for a while, of Vayarach es reach begadav, Vayarach es reich boigdav. So let me just, before we get into this Gemara, because this machvilei lehu Yitzchak HaKadosh Baruch Hu beinayu, very key. Is anybody familiar with this? What it means? Somebody want to translate this? Machvilei lehu Yitzchak HaKadosh Baruch Hu beinayu. I'll tell you the translation, and we'll learn the context. That Yitzchak showed Klal Yisrael how to see Hashem with their eyes. You understand, it says in the Akedah that Bahar Hashem Yeira'eh. What does it mean? What does it mean? Yitzchak, what does it mean? Bahar Hashem Yeira'eh.
It will appear.
What will appear? What's the context?
He will appear.
Who? Hashem. This has got nothing to do with the story. Har HaBoiriyah.
Will be seen. You're right. Will be seen.
Who?
Something.
Kadosh Baruch Hu. What's the Akedah? The Akedah is about Yitzchak. The answer is because that's the diuk. Yerushalayim is named after Har Hashem Yeira'eh. The diuk is that not he sees us, but we see him. The Har Hashem Yeira'eh we can see. There's a mitzvah of Riyas Pnei HaMikdash. Yeira'eh calls the Churcha. So let me show you this. The Rav Tzadok in Resisei Loila. says as follows in paragraph Mem Zayin. Just on a couple of lines here and a couple of lines there. Rav Tzadok says, Hey minei hasag, hey chamisha meaning minei hasagais udrachim lavai lavai Hashem yisbarach yesh. There are 5 levels of comprehension which exist to be Oved as Hashem. We're going to talk about 2. Echad, Hakar mitzad shu nivra. There was Avodas Hashem 101. There are 5 things you must realize in order to be an Eved Hashem. Number 1, point 1, says Rav Tzadok, is Hu Nivra. I was created. I'm not just here. I don't just exist. I was created. I'm a Nivra. I was created. We were created. Zeh hasagas Avraham Avinu. That's what Avraham Avinu understood. Shehikir is boirei. He recognized that there's a borei. He realized that if I was created, that means there was a creator. Omar, famously, Efshir Labira B'lai Manhig, possible there should be a whole world without a Manhig. V'zeu klolos hasaga shel kol hanivraim, and this is the hasaga which every creation must understand. Shel atachlus kein nivru, shiakiru sheyesh barei. You see this flip? That we have to understand not only that we were created, but that the reason that we were created is to understand that we were created.
Second.
That's the flip. Zeu klolos hasaga shel kol hanivraim shel atachlis kein nivru shiakiru sheyesh barei. Why were we created? So that we should understand we were created.
Sheyesh bara doesn't mean that there is the creator.
And He created me too.
It sounds like
There's a creator
in itself.
Yeah. But he's saying that what Avraham Avinu understood, that this is a tachlis to understand this, not just a piece of information. And therefore, nafkamina is like this. Shakir sheish baruch l'chein nikra av hamoin goyim shaya av l'chol ha'olam kulei shehu ha'av ha'aschala li'is'ar zeh b'chol ha'olam kulei. Avraham Avinu is the one who started the idea that there's a creator. It's Chiddush. It's so simple to us, we don't see the Chiddush in it, but it's a Chiddush. Ki chol ha'olam kulei ki ish echad, ki shenivra echad misar la'achar Hashem yisbarach ma'ar kol ha'olam kulei yimai. Since Avraham Avinu, just as a parenthetical klal, that when somebody comes to a certain realization in this world, so the whole world changes. If any of us understand something new that nobody ever understood before, this came down. This is quantum mechanics. This came down into this world as a new hasaga. Moderach Moshel, if your heart wants to do something, all your limbs get excited. So the same thing is the whole world. But the point is that Avraham Avinu, he goes on to say, was so clear about this hasaga that he was created. This was like such a strong thing with him that he was created. And therefore, Avodah Zarah has no meaning. And therefore, when Nimrod says, walk into a fire, he walks into a fire. And is saved from the fire. So we always tell the story. What's the story here? The story is that he was saved from the fire. Hafla v'fela. That's not the story. The story is that he walked into a fire. That's the story. He walked into a furnace. Because this idea was so clear to him that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the Borei, and it's ad kedei kach in emes that if somebody violates this emes and says, no, Nimrod is God, or this Avodah Zarah is God, or Tarek Sketchkas are God, I'll walk into a fire to show that that's not the case. It's an amazing thing to prove a point.
Is it till 2 or is that 3? Is that 3?
That's one.
Go back.
That's one. One is the midah of Avraham Avinu. Hakaras habayri. So the point is this, that Avraham Avinu was all about, Hikeres Bayroi was all about uncovering this unbelievably great piece of information that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was Bayrei the Olam, ad kidei Mesiras Nefesh, that he was not willing, but he did in fact walk into a fire. Let's say he was told to walk into fire. Beseder. Not so sure, by the way. If you look in the Medrash, he wasn't thrown into the fire like a person's thrown into jail. It was the Nimrod. If you look in the Medrash, Nimrod said to him, if you believe, if your God is going to help you, walk into this fire. It was like Eliyahu Navi Bahar Carmel. That was the Knech. So he walked into the fire. If he would have died, tell me if you agree with me, if he would have died in that fire, first of all, that would have ruined everything.
We wouldn't be here.
If he would have died in that fire, we wouldn't be here. Exactly. We wouldn't be talking about this. We wouldn't be here. But if he would have died in that fire, he would have died al Kiddush Hashem, maybe. So he did a Maisa of Kiddush Hashem. You hear that? Did a Maisa of Kiddush Hashem. Why more? What's more than what Kiddush Hashem?
He established Hashem as a fact.
That's the pshat in dying al Kiddush Hashem.
Maisilanos.
That's the pshat in dying al Kiddush Hashem. Says Reb Tzadok that this gave us all a koach.
Did Avraham have any even minimal Masorah, or this was completely like intuitive to him? He just completely figured it out on his own?
Afterwards he had Masorah. Afterwards he met Shem and he met Noah.
Right, so there was something going on in the world in terms of Torah, aside from him.
Yeah. No. There was Shem Ve'av or whatever that was, but
Right, there was something happening in the world.
Not in his neighborhood. There was nothing going on in Shinar, in Bavel, in the world of Nimrod. It was Malach B'Kippah. There was nothing going on in terms of Echad Haya Avram. That's what Yecheskel said. Avram Nikra Tchila L'Gerim. That whole concept of Gerus started with Avraham Avinu, says the Gemara in Chagiga Daf Gimel. Tchila L'Gerim. To be able to recognize and act upon a recognition that, whoa, Kadosh Baruch Hu is the fire, what do I do about that? I'm even willing to walk into a fire. Okay. It says, it's Hakaras Habayre, the ability to be Makaris Habayre. For us, that we're maminim, b'nei maminim, it's in our blood, but for a ger to be able to be makaris bari, that koach only comes from Avraham Avinu. Okay, I don't want to. That's Avraham Avinu.
On the last part, that is kedei lahakir, that he was created. So how do you understand that?
He realized that what?
No, the tachlis of being created, realizing that created, is to be makar that you're created.
Because otherwise there's no malchus.
So that's in Rosh Hashanah.
Otherwise there's no malchus.
So what does that mean on why does Hashem need malchus?
That's why he created the world. I don't know. That's why he created the world. He created the world because he wanted a zero b'tachtonim. You want me to explain to you why? Because otherwise it's ethereal. There has to be an aspect, in order for something to be shalem, anything to be shalem, it has to come l'maisa. This is the world of maisa. So, as much as we're able to explain such a thing, if HaKadosh Baruch Hu would have stayed b'shamayim, so then he and his chesed and his hatava would have never been l'maisa. Look, every Kabbalah sefer, the Arizal, the Baal Tanya, the Chaim Vital, the Ramchal, this is what they're all struggling with. Why did Hashem create the world? This is what the purpose of all of their books are. But they all say the same thing, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu, they all say the same thing. I mean, I don't mean to oversimplify it. It's like, but the fact is, it's in this sense, it's simple that it's all so that the Hanhag of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is so completely ethereal beyond any type of hasag at all, is l'maisa. So if it's l'maisa, so Avraham Avinu grasped this l'maisa, and if he grasped this l'maisa, so then if everything is malchus, then this hakara that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the Baal Habira is ad kedei mesiras nefesh. Let's get to the what I want to say here, because we're learning Yitzchak. Says Yesh Oid Hasaga. This is true. Yesh Oid Hasaga Yoser Gedola, which is even bigger, and it's Doma L'Ria. Do you understand that? Meaning, Avraham Avinu understood something. Yitzchak saw something. Kitam, like our Gemara in Shabbos, which we still haven't learned, is going to say, Mach v'lehu Yitzchak HaKadosh Baruch Hu beinayu. His whole gadlus was the einayim. V'hu ha'akara d'mitzad ha'nisim shal yedei ha'nes nir la'ayin pulas Hashem yisbarach. To be able to see through nisim, through different manifestations of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's world, to see ayin ba'ayin with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He says here, Emuna pshut al yedei ze yavei la'asaga gedola hadoima l'riya. Yeraya yira kitam Avram hoiledes Yitzchak. Zehu darga de Pachad Yitzchak shal yedei hariya ba hayira. Moshe Kasav v'Haga reish Arachaim. So the Ramah and Arachaim says that there's a different madrega to the fact that there is HaKadosh Baruch Hu and He's a boirei. That doesn't mean necessarily that He's involved in this world. Re'iyah means that He's not only created the world, and there you can become, not that Avraham Avinu was there, you can become some sort of Aristotelian philosopher, which is believing that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world, but okay, so He created the world, Azma. So comes Yitzchak and he says, no, and Hashkafasai Ba'olam, and he sees everything that's going on in the world too. That's the Re'iyah. When you see that HaKadosh Baruch Hu sees what's going on in my life, like the Ramah says in the beginning of Shulchan Aruch, He sees you, no matter what you're doing, no matter where you go, He sees you. So that's a madrega of Pachad Yitzchak.
What was Abraham seeing when he was in the middle of the fire? He was in the middle of the fire. He wasn't seeing anything.
So according to this, he was making, I don't know what he was saying, but he was making an intellectual point, a point of emes. He was Moshe Nefesh for emes. But Yitzchak was a different idea of being Moshe Nefesh. Was that Tam Bahar Hashem Yera'eh Shenisgala Ba'akedas Yitzchak Riyazu. This Re'iyah, being able to be seen and to see. To be seen, lirais v'leirais. To be able to see and to be seen, to have this kesher of Re'iyah with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that happened by the Akedah. Sheha'akravas nafshay la'Hashem yisbarach l'karban ba mitzad hariyah. Because making yourself into a carbon comes from Re'iyah. When you bring a carbon, you have to say Korban LaSHem, Yud Kei Vav Kei, not Korban LaAdnai, Korban LaLekim. Why? Because Yud Kei Vav Kei is the Etzem Hadavar. The Shemos of HaKadosh Baruch Hu are all referring to Midos of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Ulois of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He has Chesed, He has Din. As Rachamim. Havaya, the Shem Havaya of Yud Kei Vav Kei are not the Midos of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's it. Yud Kei Vav Kei is the Etzem Hadavar, which is why we don't say that name. We say the other names, we don't say that name. Why should we say something we have no asag in? So we have no asag in the Etzem Hadavar, we're merames to it. It says Yud Kei Vav Kei, we say Adnai. Like Kashem Shu Nichtav Hu Nikra. It's a higher madrega. Loyla shar shemos, when you bring a carbon, it's loyla shar shemos hamorim al midas. The hainu ha'akara mitzad pu'ulaisav u'midaisav. It's the pu'ulaisav HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The midas of HaKadosh Baruch Hu ha'avaya hu shem ha'etzem va'akaras ha'etzem. When you're makir the etzem zen nikra re'iyah. U'mitzad ha'karas boirei. Now here's the synopsis. Avraham Avinu. So we have to make here a new hebdel, something brand new for us here. That when we have to make a distinction between the Mesiras Nefesh of Avram and the Mesiras Nefesh of Yitzchak. The Mesiras Nefesh of Avram came al yedei Hakoras haboire. The Avraham kishakayfen lahachish baboire. They were trying to force him, as happened so many times in history. They're trying to force him to be machish the fact that Hashem created the world. This bothered them. This idea that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world, very machayev. It's very machayev. The Nishar came to Tevel L'Chol Yisrael. Avraham Avinu had the koach, even with it, to give up his life, to make this point. That's how important it was to him. It wasn't just a scientific point. It wasn't just like something you find in a textbook. Zeh kol tachlis ha'adam. If it's not kol tachlis ha'adam, it's kedai for me to make this point. Avraham Avinu said it was Moshe Nefesh for this point. Moshe Nefesh. Nishar came b'teva l'chol Yisrael l'mesiras nefesh ki yadua. Klal Yisrael has this ability. However, b'tzad hakar shivisi Hashem l'negti tamid. There's a different madrega of Yitzchak, which is the madrega of shivisi Hashem l'negti samid, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is always in front of my eyes, and I guess what's more important is I'm always in front of his. There's an ongoing relationship. Tamid ba mesiras nefesh is a different type of mesiras nefesh. Derech hakrava laHashem yisbarach. That's hakrava. Now you're bringing yourself for a korban. Korban LaSHem. So this is so madhim that you can't compare the mesiras nefesh of Avraham Avinu to the mesiras nefesh of Yitzchak. So let's say in these words that Avraham Avinu was willing to die al Kiddush Hashem. Yitzchak was willing to make himself a korban. Two opposite things. Not opposite, but two different things. Reb Tzadok says, what's the difference? What's the difference?
Does Chazal say it's harder to be a korban than to sacrifice your own son? Seems like the test that they gave.
Bring a korban.
To bring his son as a korban.
Well, in Abraham's case, it was a public display of Kiddush Hashem. There was nothing public about the Akedah. On the contrary, it was a very private moment.
Between him and Hashem.
Yeah. It's a Kiddush Yitzchak. It's not a Kiddush Avraham. Even Avraham, in a sense.
Well, it's a very good point. Because to make a Kiddush Hashem, excellent point. To make a Kiddush Hashem, there's dinim. L'fnei asar b'Yisrael. I'm making a point. Only Jews make a point this way. No, that's not true. But for HaKadosh Baruch Hu mamash, Jews make a point this way. Kiddush Hashem. I'm going to make the point. Yitzchak wasn't about making any kind of point. Shulachan pay machamor. I don't want anybody here. Ani v'anar. Now this was Avraham and Yitzchak. That's all it was. And the reason is, if I'm bringing a korban, it's influencing HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What do I need a crowd for? I'm dealing directly with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I don't need witnesses. No need. So there's many differences between. There's. I was just thinking this morning. I just read it to you. I'm sure you probably read it, but here in the Rabbi Hanan Wasserman, in the Hakdama, written by Rabbi Simcha Wasserman, that's all. He has here I'm sure you read it, but let's read it differently now. Has here the eyewitness which heard Rabbi Hanan Wasserman, Zecher Tzadik V'Kodesh L'Vracha, speaking to his Talmidim immediately before the Nazis killed them. He gave a shmooze. And he says here, in Yiddish, translated into Hebrew, which would you prefer? English.
English.
Yiddish is his words. He says here, Rabbi Hanan, this is the eyewitness, Rabbi Ashri. Rabbi Hanan diber b'sheket. He spoke quietly. Taich menuchas nafshis. He was at peace. Af koilo lo yishtana b'muma. His voice was not emotional. Aresh's panav hibiu retzinus ach regila. He had his usual sincere look on his face. Lo yegishu kol nima protis. Lo nisa afli parid mibnayram naftali. He didn't even say goodbye to his son. From Naftali shiechtu shechatu haisa mikuvenas ukulam l'klal Yisrael. Sichasei rather haisa mikuvenas ukulam. He spoke to Klal Yisrael. And this is what he said. And this is so important for what we're learning here. In Himmel, Mistama halt men uns for tzaddikim. Probably in Shemayim, they hold us for tzaddikim. Man will, dass man soll mechaper sein mit unser Gufen for dem Klal Yisrael. Because right now, our being killed is going to be a kapara for Klal Yisrael. Davar mitaket shuvatan. So therefore we have to do tshuva, gleich auf art, right now. The Zeit is kurz, is a very short time. The ninth fart, the moment is close. Makom hatabach b'Kiddush Hashem shel Kiddush Slabotke Kovna is not. The moment of Kiddush Hashem for the Kiddush of Slabotke and Kovna is very close. Darf man mehr in Sinnen haben, so we have to have in mind, he's teaching his Talmidim, wir sollen sein besser Korbanos, that we should be good Korbanos. We will be better Korbanos. I'm revel Tshuvatan, if we do Tshuva, weil wir upraten in unser Amerikaner Brüder und Schwester, and we'll be able to save our brothers and sisters in America. And then he says, Zolchan Chalila nicht reinfallen by Kenim and Moach. At this moment, nobody should let a thought come into their mind, which is a puzzle machshava. Nobody's allowed to have here a puzzle machshava. Why? Was is pigel? It's a mach puzzle them carbon. Because a puzzle machshava is pigel and it makes a carbon puzzle. We're karbonos. We are karbonos. Wir seien nicht mekayim die größte mitzvah. Be'ei chusaso, be'ei shata asid livnoisa. Wow. The Beis HaMikdash was destroyed with fire, and it's that exact fire which is going to build the Beis HaMikdash. Das Feuer, was brennt unser Gufen, is dem Feuer, was wird zurück aufrichten dem jüdische Volk. It's exactly this fire which is going to build Klal Yisrael, right? Rabbi Hanan. Meaning that the Pshat, I don't want to reduce it to lumdus, but what he was saying is in Hilchos Kodshim that it's not just the Pshat you're being mocker of the carbon. The Eish HaMizbe'ach, the Eish HaMizbe'ach is the Eish HaTikun. The Eish of carbon is the Eish of Tikun. And he's saying that the whole Beis HaMikdash was a carbon. So there was karbonos, which brought an Eish. The Eish was a Reach Nichayach Ta'akadosh Baruch Hu, as he says further. And that's the Eish of a carbon. A carbon can't have any pigul in it. Why? Because then you are putting something impure into the Eish, and then something impure will build the Beis HaMikdash. So we have a lumdus of karbonos l'maisa here. Kodshim bizman hazeh. Hakrovas kodshim bizman hazeh. You know, this is not even ancient history. It's something that our parents saw. Hakrovas karbonos. So, what he was saying here, I believe, the Chiddush Rabbi Hanan in this shir, which may have been the most important that he gave, what he was saying was that not b'bchinas Avraham, where so many millions of people died al Kiddush Hashem because they were Jewish, but b'bchinas Yitzchak. B'bchinas Yitzchak is a different idea. We're Kedoshei, Slabotke Kovna. It's a different b'china. It's a b'china of being a carbon. It's not the b'china of Avraham Avinu that are dying because we're Jewish. We're dying, we're being killed if we have the right machshava as B'nai Torah. We're being killed, and this is a carbon which is going to save, as it says, our brothers and sisters in America. So, Yasher Koyach to Rabbi Hanan b'Talmidav. And it's going to build the Beis HaMikdash. And therefore you can't have, when we're dealing with karbonos, you can't have pigul. You know, when you're dying of Kiddush Hashem, you can have pigul. If a person dies because he's Jewish, Harugei Lud. Very good. He's a Kaddish. Kaddish Eimerloi.
What's your argument?
But the point is, if a person dies because he's if a person dies, we say the 6 million Kedoshim. There were 6 million Kedoshim and a few thousand Karbanos. So even though all the speakers like to speak about the 6 million Karbanos, it wasn't 6 million Karbanos. It was 6 million Kedoshim al derech Avraham Avinu, and a couple thousand Karbanos, which somehow so it makes us think like the Asar Arugei Malchus. Were they Kedoshim or were they Karbanos?
Repeat the difference.
The nafkamina or the difference? The difference is that one is coming from a Pachad Yitzchak, says Reb Tzadok, where we're so aware that we're seeing HaKadosh Baruch Hu and He's seeing us, that there's this kesher. Avraham Avinu was not talking about a kesher. He was talking about a Matthias. Kilu, a theological, scientific fact. Ish bar, yesh nivra. Re'iyah is a whole different story. Re'iyah means that, right? We just learned in the Ramchal. There's hashkafasai v'hashkachasai. Before that, there's Avraham Avinu, which is not even talking about the fact when he was young, not even talking about the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is involved with us so much as that this is the emes, and that's all. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is very the island. It's a higher madreg in a way, if you ask me, but it's not about his involvement. It's an emes. It's just an emes. That's the way it is. Yitzchak sat on that mizbe'ach, laid on the mizbe'ach, looking upwards. He saw the Tishrei Shemayim opened up for him, say Chazal, and he saw something different. He had a riyah, Bahar Hashem Yeroeh. He had a riyah of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I'm wondering if the pshat in the Malachim being Moirei Dema'is into this world is not a very, very deep metaphor for the interaction between the world of Shemayim and the world of Aretz. There's no dichotomy, no splitting here. The demayis of the Malachim, those tears, fell into this world. So the happenings of Shemayim were the happenings of Aretz. And where did they fall? They fall right there on this carbon. So Yitzchak was a carbon for Klal Yisrael. And that's why it's Yitzchak that we speak about over and over again in the slichas every day. There's every single day of the slichas. You notice there's a slicha for Yitzchak the Akedah, not for Avraham, not for Yaakov, for Yitzchak. Every day we say the Akedah. By the way, if you say the Akedah every day, you're muftach. If you say it with kavanah, muftach hatzlacha in that day. It's like we're nachamal bringing this korban home, and the nekuda of it is your shamayim. The point of the Akedah, the point of being a korban, the point of the story here with Rabbi Chanan is all about your shamayim. It was so clear that Hashem is watching us and that we see HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It was so clear. It
sounds like Yitzchak actually used the tears of place to land.
That's right. And they blind him. Atam ho. And they blind him. What do they blind him to? They blind him to everything that's bad in this world. Because this was for the Talmidim of Rabbi Chanan. How can I say I'm not there? For the Talmidim of Rabbi Chanan, this was a positive moment. They were not focusing on the mamzerim that were killing them. This wasn't the focus. They were focusing on how do we help the brothers and sisters in America. What do you think in America? Like, who thinks about America? Well, you're being killed on Kiddush Hashem in Europe.
His words are almost prophetic. Somehow he knew, and he was positive that America was going to become the epicenter. This is before the state of Israel. This is where it's going to grow from.
The Eish Kodesh writes that what happened in Europe was the hemshech of the Akedah.
Wow. You know, my father-in-law who was home went in Telz in Europe, and Rabbi Hanan had a kesher with Telz. It was Rabbi Hanan Wasserman. He came to Telz from time to time. So when he lived in Baranovich, which was not Telz, it was maybe by train 8-10 hours away, I understand. Baranovich and Telz in Linton. So he came to Telz, Rabbi Haber came to Telz to visit and speak and give shiurim, and beautiful time in Telzer Yeshiva. So they were Mechabed Rabbi Haber. They considered him a Telzer, but considered one of their own Telzer. He was a brisker. That's it. But Brisk and Telz don't even get along, but we don't have to talk about the politics right now. But Rabbi Hanan was a bridge between Telz and Brisk. Anyways, when he went time to go back to Telz, so they needed to send somebody to accompany him on the trains. It was dangerous times for Jews. We're talking about a year, I believe, before the Holocaust. So my father-in-law was 6'4", wide and tall. 6'4" by 6'4". It's a giant, big guy. Talmud Chacham, Yeshiva Bacher. And so they asked him or he offered, I don't know, if he can accompany Rabbi Hanan back to Baranovich from Telz. So he accompanied him, and he was on the train with him for, let's say, 10 hours. That was there, and it was like a bodyguard. It was a pretty dangerous time. And he spoke to Rabbi Hanan the whole time. Rabbi Hanan gave him a copy of a little paperback sefer, Ikvus of the Mashiach, which is now in the back of the my Marim, and he signed it in. I have that in my house, this little pamphlet to Rabbi Hanan. Right? Priceless thing. So he gave Ikvus of the Mashiach, prophetic, right? The times of Mashiach. He wrote a little sefer. So Rabbi Hanan, by the way, was also over 6 feet tall. You can imagine that the most of this Rosh Yeshiva got a lot more, and this Yeshiva Bacher walking. So at the end of the journey, so my father-in-law asked Rabbi Hanan for a bracha. So Rabbi Hanan put his hand, not bracha mode, but he put his hand on my father-in-law's eyes, and he said with him Shema, like a Litvish bracha. He said with him Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, and he instructed him to be Makabel Ol Malchus Shemayim. Makabel Ol Malchus Shemayim, so then Einoin Milvado, everything is Mevayrach. So it was Makabel Ol Malchus Shemayim. So it's interesting when I don't know the story, when my father-in-law passed away, so he had no koach at all. I said Kriya Shema with him. So I put my hand on his eyes because he couldn't do it himself. So he said, so this is what he said. It's just like Rabbi Hanan. It's just like Rabbi Hanan. It's just like Rabbi Hanan. It's like but I was thinking, like the Taich of Kabbalas Ol Malchus Shemayim is a very deep, a deeper idea, if you will, if I may, a deeper idea than the idea even of Avraham Avinu. It was the idea of Pachad Yitzchak. Kabbalas Ol Malchus Shemayim means that this is not just a fact that there's a Bayrei and there's a Nivra and we must live accordingly, but Kabbalas Ol Malchus. It's all about Malchus. So the Malchus Shemayim is on a deep level when there's Kabbalas Ol Malchus Shemayim. This is a sort of a relationship or issue between HaKadosh Baruch Hu and the Adam. So again, next time we'll go through this Gemara, which is very important, but the Nekuda here is the difference between Avraham and Yitzchak is the difference between Kiddush Hashem and Korban. A whole different idea which will need to be explained.
Say in English, justice is blind. Justice is blind is a phrase. Which means,
I don't know the phrase. What does it mean?
Then you don't differentiate, rich, poor, black, white, but that's